Hi, in the last video, I just gave a very brief introduction about the graphs in Plotly, right? Now, in this video, we will talk about the structure, the JSON structure of the graph, so that it will be very much easier when we will be working with the graphs to set different properties of the graph. Okay, so we will try to get the idea behind the JSON structure in this video. Probably next video onwards we will go to work on different kinds of graphs as well. Now for this one, what I did is I've just taken a very simple example here. So using the Plotly Express, as I mentioned in my previous video, mostly we will try to use the plotly.express package here. So I just created a scattered graph over here for like the GDP per capita and life expectancy over here, okay, for different years, for different continents over here, if you see it, right? So this graph has a lot of stuff, like it has multiple, if you see, like it is showing data for multiple continents as well as multiple years. So there is a nice animation as well over here, if you see it. Like I just take the code from the Plotly documentation itself so that I can show you what's going on behind the scene. So it has everything to understand the graph structure. So don't worry about this code now. If we do not understand this code in this video, that is also fine, because we will anyway touch base this scattered plot or any other plots in future videos. So mainly let us try to concentrate on like how to see the graph, like how this graph is rendered over here, and with that information will be basically helpful to us. Now the basic way to see the JSON behind the figure structure over here, if you see it, I have defined it over here, right? So just using the print function here. So if I just do print figure here, so it should show me the JSON over here, which is basically getting passed to this plotly.js, right, to render this graph over here. And if you see it, like it's a very big JSON over here. So I have basically copied the JSON in my notepad. Probably we will try to see it from there. Okay, so we'll just try to understand the structure here. Anyway, we do not need to go through everything over here. If we just try to if we just get a basic idea about the structure over here, it should be enough. So let me go to the notepad, which I have already pasted the graph JSON over here. And if you see, like at very basic, it has three important nodes. One is the data, second will be layout. Let me try to find the layout here. If you see it here, the second top node is the layout node, and the third one is also another top node, but it is optional node. It's called the frames here. If you see it here, this is the one. Okay, so these three are the most important top nodes in this JSON, the basically the figure JSON file here, which is getting passed to that plotly.js for rendering purpose, right? So now let us try to discuss the data first. So data means, like as this name suggests, basically like it holds the data portion of the graph, right? That means it will be holding the value we'll be having for the x-axis and y-axis as well as if you see it here, this is a array of dictionary, right? So this is an array, and this is an array of dictionary over here. Like there are a lot of dictionaries over here, right? And each and every dictionary has its own settings, like the hover template, hover text, marker, type of the graph. If you see, this is scattered plot. So this basically shows like what kind of graph it is, and like whether to show legend or not, like this one, right? For each and every dictionary over here. Now each and every element of this array, that means these dictionaries are called traces over here. Probably let us go back to the graph we were discussing to see what the traces means. So let me turn off the other one. Okay, this is a very interesting feature over here. If you see, I can turn off the other continent data over here. Okay, so now I have only the Asia data shown in my graph over here, right? So this is called a single trace. So if I just turn turn on Europe, so that means I will have two traces now in my graph. Now this concept is coming from the subplot as well, right, where you can basically show multiple graphs in a single graph, right? It's kind of subplot concept. So these traces can be shown in a single plot. If you see, like over here, all these traces for different continents like Asia, Europe, Africa, Americas are shown in a single plot itself, or these traces can be shown in separate plot as well as a subplot, okay, or the trellis plot over there. So that also we can do it. So that's why the data portion of the graph is basically a list of dictionary over here, okay. And if we want to, we will see that in future as well, like how to change any of these properties over here. There are a lot of methods. There are certain high level methods are also defined in Plotly Express, which we can use it, or you can set it by just like our JSON format, right? Something like the dot structure over there, or also we can do it, or there is some other interesting way of setting the properties as well, which we will discuss in later videos. But if you want to change something related to the data, you need to play around with this guy over here. Now the next thing is the layout. So let me try to find it out over here. Layout. So this is the layout, and if you see it, it's a Python dictionary over here. So layout basically specifies the non-data related characteristics or properties of a graph, something like margins, right? Or if you have some kind of sliders in your graph, something like this one. So in a kind of animated graph, we can show sliders and the graph will change based on the slider value over here, right? So this kind of stuff is actually set by the layout of the graph. Even the fonts, the dimensions, everything has been set by the layout of the graph over here, okay? So that is the non-data related properties of the graph set by layout over here. Now the third thing, which is also an optional and which is only required for the graphs where you have animations, something like we have over here in our graph, right? So for animated graphs, we have another top level node called the frames over here. So this frame basically holds the data portion of each and every animation frames over here, okay? So let me try to show you as well. So if I just search for frames, so frames over here, and if you see, it has its own data portion, because for each and every frames of that animation, it needs to show the data, which data it needs to show. And if you see it, like the data has actually the same structure whatever we have discussed before as well for our data structure, right? The similar structure it has, only thing is that it requires for the animation purpose, right? So all these frame details it requires over here. And if you see it in this graph, if I just play on this play button, so each and every change is happening in the graph, right? It's a frame. So that data will be saved in that frame, under that frame root node over there, okay? So this is called the frame. So if you see, like this data, layout and frames are actually responsible for creating this whole graphical environment over here, right? So data is basically for the data portion, layout is basically how it will be rendered, like how it will show in that browser over here, and frames for our animations as well over here, right? Now there is another kind of node which is not part of this JSON, but which is used when the graph is basically rendered. Suppose like some kind of user click, let's say if I want to achieve something, like if I scroll my mouse, currently if you see, like if I am scrolling it over here, it is my this window is going up and down over here, right? So what if I want to scroll mouse, but I want zoom, right? So I can have this kind of thing at the render level using a config object over there, which is basically separate from this JSON structure over there, which we need to separately pass it to this figure object, okay? So let us discuss that one as well. So I just copied the code. Anyway, code we are not going to discuss in this video, so let us not waste our time over there. So if you see it, there is a very simple config object I have. It's basically a Python dictionary if you see it. Okay, so this dictionary, what I have given is scroll zoom equals to true. So this config object I am passing to my figure.show as a config object over here separately. Okay, so if I do this one, so what will happen? So let's say if I just scroll, if you see I am doing my mouse scrolling now. So this is basically enabling me to scroll zoom, correct? So this kind of behavior also you can set for the graph as well using this config object. So this config objects are responsible for the user actions, right? So if user is doing something like mouse click or mouse wheel up and down, so if you want to catch those events and take certain kind of action in your graph, so you can do that using this config object over here. Okay, and it's a Python dictionary. And I forgot to tell, the frames are basically again the list of dictionaries over there. Okay, so data is basically list of dictionaries, layout is basically a dictionary, frames are list of dictionary as well, and config is also a dictionary over here. Okay, so probably in next video we'll start exploring different kinds of graph and see like how we can use these graphs into Plotly Dash as well, because I think in the previous video briefly I have shown how we can render these graphs into Plotly Dash app, right, in a simple page. So there is nothing fancy over there, but it will be much more interesting when we talk about like different kinds of callbacks with the graphs over there. Okay, so hopefully this video was helpful. See you in the next video.